If you thought the Nintendo Switch 2's release was one of the worst you've ever seen, then let me introduce you to the PlayStation 3. One of the best consoles of all time, right? Top 20 at least. But the issues that stemmed from this console started from day one of its release. And I'm going to go through a little bit of that history for you so I can make it more comprehensible. Because everyone now thinks I just hate Nintendo. No, I hate all these companies equally. But I like things about them too. Don't get that wrong. I've said my praises about Nintendo despite dunking on the Nintendo Switch 2. But here, it's Sony's turn. We're putting them up to the plate and see how hard they're going to swing and miss the ball. I think they brought a hockey stick to a baseball game, and they're still swinging at something that's not even remotely to either of those two sports. So let's start off with what the competition was like during this period of time. Let's lay down the foundation of what things were going on in the video game world. The Xbox 360 was released a year before the PS3 was going to be released, and it was a hit. It was good. It's a good sequel to the Xbox. And I know Xbox doesn't have the best names, as it came later on. Not just in hindsight. I think Xbox 360 as the name was dumb. Day one. As soon as I heard it was called a 360, it's dumb. And you even got the jokes that people saying they turn around or whatever, they go 360 and walk away from the TV. Even though you just be staring at the TV, that was some classic humor. But the Xbox 360 was doing well. The Wii was going to come out at the same time as the PS3. And the Wii had very good marketing. It was very strong. We Would Like to Play is a very good commercial. All-timer for marketing for a video game console. And not only that, they're trying to market family as well, specifically, as Nintendo always usually did, until later on where it's just you're grown-ups now playing with friends because the demographic changed as well. But the PS3 had tough competition. Would have to go out of its way to try to compete with both of these consoles now, since it would be the last of the two. And here's what they do. They decide, and their genius and their brilliance over there at Sony, all the shareholders, the employees, the CEOs, the presidents, vice presidents, whatever positions they had, and whoever was in power to dictate this stuff. Ken, was it you? Decided that the retail price for the console would be $499.99. And you say, well, wasn't there two models? You're correct. $599.99 for the second model. And you're wondering, why did you bring up the storage space? Because first of all, I will get to the storage space. Second off, the problem was already the retail price. $500 for a console is too much, even for 2006. Even now, it's too much. And everyone loves using inflation as an argument. 19 years later, it's still too much. $500 for any console is too much. I am not paying that. Thank you, fuck you, goodbye. And now we will get to the storage space, that in their brilliance, they decided to make the first model of the PS3 and the second model that was $100 more expensive, 20 gigabytes of storage space and 60 gigabytes of storage space. Are you out of your mind? Why in your right mind would you make this your retail price? I'm going to put up the price of the PS1. I'm going to put up the price of the PS2. I'm going to put up the price of the PS2 Slim, heck, just for comparison. And in their genius, they thought this was going to be a good selling marketing idea. I don't care how cool the console looks. $500 to $600 for a console is a no-go. This is not including sales tax and potentially shipping if you somehow got it online. During 2006, very rare, but it could happen. I'm not saying there wasn't even price gouging or scalping here. There might have been. I don't know how severe it was, but it could have happened with this. And the problem is, with that storage space, these two first models of the PS3 are basically glorified PS2 emulators. And you're wondering, well, why are you saying that? Isn't 20 gigabytes and 60 gigabytes enough? So let's talk about the release titles, which it actually had an okay amount of release titles, and I'll put them on the screen for you. Resistance: Fall of Man. And you're probably wondering, well, that's a pretty good game, actually. So how much did it need? According to this list indexed on this website, that was before May of 2011, that was updated to let you know how much you required for your hard drive to install a certain amount of memory for each game. Resistance: Fall of Man only needed 0.22 gigabytes. Hey, that's actually pretty good. That's not too bad. Well, let's get to another release title that happened at the same time. Heavenly Sword. 2.1 gigabytes. So if you bought the first 20 gig model, 10% of your storage space is already gone and dedicated to one single game. Are you out of your mind, Sony? Did you not think any of this through? You should have just waited. You should have just waited. There's no patience in the video game market anymore. There wasn't 20 years ago. Everything's got to be released this stuff. Oh, no, Xbox is doing that. Oh, no, this company's doing that. Yeah, right, man. You guys got billions of dollars pumping into this. You think I don't know? You think I don't know that? Yeah, right. FOMO, planned obsolescence. It's been there since day one. Don't even try it with me. You ain't fooling me. Not yet. I think I might have been fooled, but not yet. I haven't realized it yet. I'm too dumb. But even then, the launch titles weren't that great either. There's a good amount, better than the Switch 2s, just by default, but, you know, your NBA 2Ks, your NHL 2Ks, Ridge Racer 7, it's not really a good selection of games for a launch title. Not saying they're all bad, but Tony Hawk's Project 8, is that really a console seller? Tiger Woods PGA Tour 07, really? They're not really console sellers, man. And that also hurt the PlayStation as well, because now not only are you paying $500, you're also paying now $60 for all these launch title games. If you want any of them, you didn't have to. Why else would you just want an expensive paperweight? Like the Switch 2, you just want an expensive paperweight on your desk waiting for a game to be released 3 to 6 months later? Okay, good for you, man. I don't. But also, the biggest issue that was happening with the PlayStation 3 is that they were running at a loss up until 2009. That's why they had to make the console so expensive. That's probably why you were wondering why it was so expensive, because they were running at a loss for the first almost 3 years. It was the beginning of 2009, so it was more like 2 years. But that's still insane. I mean, I've heard some more risky business moves happening in my life. Remember the Ouya? This billion-dollar corporation at this point, publicly traded stock, all the good stuff, to risk this much by paying like probably at least $200 to $300 more to make, and then having it priced at $500 was pretty much a death nail that first couple years. It was rough. It's not saying even bad games came out. We could look at some other games. What, Devil May Cry 4 came out, what, 2008? But it required almost 5 gigabytes. That's a quarter of the first model. What were they thinking? There was no brain cells to connect here. There was no logical conclusion to come from. They went a little too far too quickly. Did not allow this idea to come to fruition, which it would later on with the PS3 Slim. And I got my own handy timeline to let you know how many PS3s there were. There's too many, ranging from somehow 20 gigabytes. I've heard there's even a 12 gigabyte version of the PS3 that came out in 2013, around there, 2012. So we got PS3 models ranging from 12 gigabyte up to 500. No other console has this much disparity in storage space than the PS3. Not a single one. Xbox 360 was at least smart enough to understand that they also underestimated how big games were getting, but they also knew that they could switch out hard drives. Big brain move by Microsoft. Listen, when genius arrives, it is to be appreciated, okay? I gotta give it to them. But Sony, they just did not care. There was even different versions for the PAL version. What? Japanese only? What are you talking about, man? Yeah, I just want to point out those 20 and 60 gigs were NTSC, but you only got one controller with it as well. That sucks. You want everybody's goal? There were some bundles to get with it, but it was still expensive. No one would want to buy it at that price. It wasn't until the Slim in 2009, December of 2009. So this is 6 days after Christmas. From September 30th to December 31st, 6.5 million sales. Insane. That's one of the higher gross margins here. You can tell that also happened with other Slims later on when they were coming out. I mean, look at where the Slim came out. September of 2009. And it was even cheaper during Christmas, dude. It was like $150, $200. 150 to $200 for the Slim was crazy. And I'm talking about the 160 gigabyte too was like that when it came out. It was insane. But these Slims actually had to counteract what the first two models were doing, and even the later models that were before that. But the issue is they decided in their genius to just remove the PS2 emulation. So you can tell here that the first two models actually had proper PS2 emulation, PS2 backwards compatibility. So you can play PS2 games on there and save them on there. That's why I say it's a glorified PS2 emulator at the end of the day. The first model. The second model, not as much, but it still is one. But even later on, you can tell that 80 gigabytes still wasn't a whole lot either. Like I said, I have the list of games before 2011, which was most of the games, but there's some games later on like Destiny 1 that required a lot, especially if you add the DLCs to it, which I'll put on the screen the amount of gigabytes you needed just for hard drive space, just for Destiny 1 and all the way up to the Taken King in terms of DLC for storage space on the PS3. It's insane. By the time all that was coming out, we had the Super Slim, which was 500 gigabytes, which is plenty, but like I said, you can't play your PS2 games on it anymore. It ruined the whole idea of what the PS3 was going for in the beginning. They removed something that was already in the console and said, you know what, it's not going to work out for us. We've already put too much money and time into this. We can't just fit it in there based on our storage space. All right, we'll just leave it out. That sucks. It's awful. At least it wasn't an add-on, okay? At least it wasn't an add-on. But yeah, the PS3 launch was disastrous, man. The CEO at the time, I do believe, stepped down 6 months before they released the PS3. Well, supposedly was going to step down 6 months before the console was released, because that already tells me you knew the ship was sinking. A console is not made in a day, let alone a year. So you already knew in the development of this console and 6 months before it's supposed to be released that it wasn't going to be good. And it wasn't. And lo and behold, a disaster yet again. Nero playing his fiddle, watching Rome burn, watching Sony burn yet again. Ah, just a new fire added. See, I could dunk on any video game console company, but I also like some things about the PS3 as well. They made up for their mistake in the Slim, thank God. Don't talk about the 2011 PlayStation Network outage, though. That was a mistake. But another thing I want to talk about the PS3 before I end this, it did have Blu-ray. That's all I gotta say. So they did think of their concept for the PS2s, like, invent a new technology or add a new technology to our console so you can watch movies in a higher quality. Good stuff, PlayStation. Fission mailed. We'll get them next time. Fission mailed. Yeah, mission failed successfully, Sony. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good one on me. And remember, enjoy your time in existence. It's pretty short.